Rose here. Where am I? Aha. Hi everyone, it's Ella Rose here. I have a page I want to share for some of my other followers that are into the history and trying to work out what Tartaria is. And I've known about this for some time, but I just couldn't find it on paper. So I just want to quickly share it with you. The vast empire of Tartaria was a country that appears on ancient maps. Now, it goes back a long time. Just look at the maps. It's all over it. Had worldwide influence and once covered North, South America, Australia, New Zealand, most of Russia, China, Europe, Japan, India and Korea. For the most part, the citizens of this country were led by their own guidance of natural law and honouring truth and integrity. They enjoyed a high standard of living and dwelt in harmony with nature. They built amazing edifices all over the world. The wonderful cathedrals of Europe and the enormous aqueducts in southern Europe and Mexico, the Grand Canal in China, the Erie Canal in America, the fabulous outside arenas around the Mediterranean Sea, the Colosseum in Rome, magnificent temples in St. Petersburg, Russia. They lived in luxurious villas. They made ziggurats, star forts, dolmens, and earthen mounds all over, which utilised the etheric natural energy out of the ether, basically. They created exquisite statues, crafted golden ornaments. They built the Great Wall in what is now China. Marco Polo wrote an extensive, detailed account of Asia in the 13th and 14th centuries and did not even mention a wall. The Great Wall is not seen on any of the maps predating the late 1600s, so most of its construction occurred in the 1700s and was built to keep the encroaching Chinese out of Tartaria. The openings on the wall are on the north side towards the former Tartary, not on the south side, China, facing south. It should be called the Great Wall of Tartaria, and I have said this before. The further back in time you go, the more advanced it gets. There are many pyramids of different kinds, and also if you look at a pyramid all over the world, and especially the big ones in Egypt, they lay it out like today's computer chips. Exactly, like on the motherboards of our computer chips. It's just unreal. And they all seem to be, if the world was laid out, flat, they all seem to line up. So they built pyramids of different kinds, megalithic temples strewn out of rock, the Ellora caves in India, the colossal underground megalithic churches of the Lapitha, Ethiopia, extensive underground tunnel systems, the astonished Separum of Sagaria in Egypt. The earlier of the monolithic stone, the bigger it is, and the more precision it is cut with. The earlier the structure, the more incapable we are of replicating it. Never was mortar used. In the past ages, the world was more diverse. Skeletons of giants were found on all continents, and remains of beings with elongated skulls. Graveyards of little people and horned human-like entities have been unearthed. A couple of years ago, actually, up in Indonesia, they found little people, and it was all over the news, and then it was quickly hushed up. You can still find some info about it if you just search little people Indonesia. Now, if these beings have ever existed, like the Tartarians, they are never mentioned. We live in a virtual reality where true history is ignored and covered up. Total false narrative is taught. Fantasies are replaced with truth, and everything is pushed way back to the remote past. Older advanced structures are credited to local people who came later, who had no idea how to build them. They basically just refurbished them. The deception has been utilised to push history back 1,000 years and create an artificial dark age. So it's about 1,300 years that I've worked out, and also during that time they shortened the age of Taurus by about 250 years to push this time so it will line up. The time of Jesus was less than 1,000 years ago. In the Middle Ages, the I and the J before the numbers designated Jesus, not the number 1. For example, I-346 is 346 years after the time of Jesus, not 1346. Way back in the Old Testament, at the same time, immediately following the Exodus, it states that the Israelites used the Ark of the Covenant as their weapon of war against the Amorites, the Moabites, and the Philistines. So the use of energy weapons has been ongoing for over 1,000 years. It was perfected to the point where it was able to take out many millions of Tartarians. The energy weapons melted cities and destroyed civilizations of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, which were approximately the same time period as Jesus, and were heavily influenced by Tartaria. Not only are they pushed back into the remote history, the extent of their empires have been fabricated. Destroying the pyramid complex was the first objective of the Israelites. Pumaputu is part of the complex in Bolivia and had interlocking megaliths of andesite and dorite. These are the types of granite only surpassed in hardness by diamonds, but they were somehow carved with laser-like flawlessness. Now they are broken and shattered and blown to bits. Turakanemo and Pumapunku is said to have been built by some local mitigating tribe. I apologise for saying that wrong. Energy weaponized from the Ark of the Covenant is what brought down the walls of Jericho. The Ark was an electrical capacitor composed of silver and brass alloys gilded with gold. Its true purpose was to store and direct energy from the earth to outside sources, but transporting it around was very dangerous and it caused people to become sick and die. It had a consistent radiation, and it also sent out intermittent electrical surges where many people were killed instantly. That's why they said people touched it and they died. The ones who carried it around had to wear protective clothing. The electrical capacity of such apparatus would have been over 500 volts. Opposing armies would be defenceless against such a weapons. The volume or cubic capacity of the empty coffer inside the king's chamber and the Great Pyramid of Giza is exactly the same volume of the Ark of the Covenant. According to the Egyptian tradition, and the Israelites plundered the Egypt during the upheaval of the time of the Exodus, they took the Ark out of the so-called King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza at this time. The tribe of Israel also used religion as a means to get their foot in the door into the ruling affairs of foreign countries. The religious leaders hold great power to be able to influence many simple minds who believe the leaders' edicts are from God. The Druids held such a sway in England were Jewish, so were the Jesuits. They have all been popes and Mormon leaders. The reason why the Jewish people look down on the Christians is because they know they invented the Christian religion. And Christianity is basically the four main religions before Babylon rolled into one. And basically it's been mixed up big time to what Christ wanted. Jewish beliefs are just a rendition of the former appearances and interactions of planetary gods. Books written in the Tartaria were rewritten and sold as Jewish history. More of the content was fabricated and interfused with traditional local beliefs. This is how they sold their religion. They used monks to write what they wanted, making them think that they were doing God's work. The burning of the old books and writing of them in order to change history is the real Reformation. The Library of Alexandria in Egypt was purposely destroyed to limit knowledge. Making deals with kings was a way that they were able to get a control of the country's financial system. Once won all controls of the money supplied and its allotments, then they controlled the country. In this way, the righteous kings were replaced by insurgent kings who defrauded the people to take part in unjust wars. Just fake an event such as a murder, blame it on another country, add some patriotic and religious slogans, demonize the other country, and you have created a war. In the Middle Ages, the spraying of viruses not only eliminated entire villages, it caused the Black Plague, which killed off over 70 million people in Europe. Disease was a favourite weapon used against Tartaria Kingdom. In 1346, the siege at Kafar in the Ukraine, the Tartarians suffered an epidemic of plague that brought on them by catapulting of the viruses into the city. Fire was used to burn crops and create famine, and the 1490s saw the first sign of the collapse of the Tartary Empire. In 1666, the city of London was intentionally burned. Tartaria was severely weakened in 1775, but remained until early 1800s. When Napoleon attacked Russia, Moscow was hit by an energy weapon. So was Washington, D.C. in the War of 1812. See, something happened around 1812 and the tungsten event. I wonder if that's what they're talking about. The first two world wars were to wipe out the remaining Tartarian influences, and that's exactly what I said. And this is why we have been also blocked from... China's only just recently opened up to people. the last sort of 10, 20 years. Before that, people didn't go to China. That's why North Korea and all, it's all cut off, because it's still got the old world. Okay, so the first two world wars would wipe out the remaining Tartarian influences. Genghis Khan was said to be a Mongol. Mongol is just a made-up name which is then associated with Mongolia. Genghis Khan fought to restore the kingdom of Tartaria and reclaim the land. He mounted warriors called Tatars, now Tartaria. But now Tartaria is associated with hell. Many buildings in America demolished or still standing, said to be built by early pioneers or the native people in America, were in fact built by the Tartars. Diseases were also used against the native people in the Americas. It is estimated 95% of them perished from disease, mostly smallpox. The Aztecs looked upon the Spaniards as the returning of their light-coloured god. Their beliefs harkened back to the events in the ancient sky, when the light-coloured god came down from the heavens to save them. But these light-coloured people come to kill them. The old world order was replaced by the new world order. And it's, Nero world order, that's where it was. The Gregorian calendar was instituted to force the common people to accept the new faults chronologically. Peace and freedom was being replaced by fenced-up strict borders. The suppression of Tartary coincides with a new teaching of evolution. That's Darwinism. We just think we're evolving, but we've just become disconnected with nature and disconnected with reality. It was not always like that. The further back in time you go, the more connected and at peace we were with ourselves, with the animals, and the land we lived on. We are fluttering, longing creatures 1,000 years before the sea and the wind gave up us words. How can we express the ancient of the days in us with only the sounds of our yesterdays? So this is just a really interesting piece that was just shown to me, and I had to share to you. Thanks for watching. Bye.